In the heart of the Maasai Mara, as the golden dawn swept over the endless grasslands, a desperate lioness did something no one could have expected. She stopped a convoy of tourists, begging for help to save a trapped cub. What unfolded next was a breathtaking rescue that united man and beast in a bond of trust and gratitude. Witness the rare and emotional moment when nature's fiercest predator becomes a mother in need, and humans become her only hope. This isn't just a story of survival. It's a reminder that compassion transcends all barriers. Stay tuned for a tale you will never forget. As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the yellow sea of grass in the Maasai Mara, a mother lion and her playful cub wandered across the dry fields, basking in the peace of a new day. But tranquility soon turned into a race against time. A misstep by the curious cub sent it tumbling into a deep pit, its desperate cries tearing through the morning calm. The frantic mother, unable to rescue her beloved cub on her own, made a heart-wrenching decision to seek help from humans. Charging toward a convoy of tourist vehicles, the lioness stunned everyone as she stood in the middle of the road, pleading with soulful eyes. Among the startled tourists was David, a seasoned Maasai Mara guide who had once saved this very lioness during a devastating drought years ago. Recognizing each other instantly, a powerful bond reignited. This time, it was the lioness who needed David's help. What followed was an incredible display of courage, instinct, and compassion. Armed with nothing but a rope, a bucket, and sheer determination, David and a few brave tourists orchestrated a delicate rescue. Against all odds, they pulled the exhausted cub to safety, reuniting mother and child in a moment that melted hearts. This unforgettable encounter proves that when trust bridges the wild and the human world, miracles can happen. Don't miss the emotional rescue that's touching hearts across the globe. Watch now and feel the power of love, loyalty, and survival. The sun had just risen over the golden grass fields of the Maasai Mara Nature Reserve, Kenya. In the sparkling dawn light, a mother lion and her cub strolled leisurely across the dry grass. The early morning wind whispered through the land, bending the tall blades of grass and revealing the faint footprints of a long-abandoned pride. These two lions now lived apart from their group. The mother, determined to train her cub into a brave and skilled hunter, had led them away to have space and time to focus. The cub, though still young, was bursting with energy, forever running about, curious about every little thing. Each morning, the mother lion walked the fields with her cub, practicing the sacred art of stalking prey. The grass was thick and dry, creating a wild, yet challenging, terrain. The mother lion often sniffed around her cub, tenderly reminding it to stay quiet and focused during the hunt. But the cub's bright, curious eyes constantly wandered, unable to fully concentrate. That morning, as they reached a strange, unfamiliar corner of the grassland, the cub spotted the dark mouth of a deep hole. It crept closer, sniffing cautiously, trying to discover what lay beneath. Suddenly, the loose sand gave way, and the cub tumbled into the pit. Its sharp, panic cries shattered the peaceful morning air. Startled, the mother lion spun around and rushed to the edge of the hole. Peering down and seeing her cub struggling helplessly, she let out a roaring cry of panic, longing to leap in but afraid she wouldn't be able to climb out herself. Desperately, she circled the hole again and again, searching for a way to save her cub, but her efforts were in vain. The walls of the hole were steep, the soil dry and crumbling. Each attempt the cub made to claw its way up only sent more dirt falling down. Exhausted and weak, the cub's cries grew softer, until it lay panting at the bottom. The mother lion roared in agony, calling to her cub with heart-wrenching growls, her eyes clouded with fear. At last, realizing she could not save her baby alone, she made a painful decision. Turning away from the pit, she raced across the vast grasslands in search of help. She headed straight for the nearby asphalt road that cut through the reserve. In the distance, she spotted a convoy of tourist vehicles moving slowly. Without hesitation, she ran straight into the road, forcing the lead car to brake suddenly. The leading vehicle stopped, and a man stepped out, his face filled with shock. His name was David, a longtime ranger of the Maasai Mara Reserve. David had been guiding a group of tourists that morning, introducing them to the wild beauty and stories of the savannah. At first, the tourists panicked, seeing the lioness standing defiantly in their path. But David, seasoned and wise, sensed immediately that this lioness meant no harm. He carefully approached, moving slowly so as not to alarm her. The lioness looked into David's eyes, not with aggression, but with pleading desperation, and let out a hoarse roar. The tourists watched in breathless silence as she suddenly stepped forward, rubbing her head against David's legs like a tame cat seeking help. She groaned softly, then looked back toward the endless sea of grass, as if asking him to follow. In that moment, David's heart stopped. He caught sight of a scar on her neck, a familiar mark from 2 years ago. He realized, with a surge of recognition and awe, that this was the very lioness he had once saved from death during a terrible drought. At that time, the Maasai Mara was suffering under a brutal drought, a disaster that had already claimed the lives of over 500 wild animals. During one of his patrols, David had encountered a starving lion, barely clinging to life, trapped in a desperate state of hunger and thirst. Without hesitation, he had brought the lion back to the reserve checkpoint, offered it water, treated its wounds, and nursed it back to health before releasing it to rejoin its pride. The scar on the lioness's neck still bore silent witness to that dark chapter of survival. Now, recognizing the man who had once saved her, the mother lion showed immediate trust, her desperate eyes pleading for help once again. David gently rested his hand on her menere, feeling the urgency and raw emotion radiating from her. Turning to the group of tourists, he quickly explained the situation and urged them to remain calm. Without wasting a second, the lioness turned and sprinted back across the golden grasslands, leading David toward the place where her cub was trapped. David signaled to a few brave guests to follow him, while the others stayed safely by the vehicles. They walked swiftly yet cautiously, keeping a respectful distance behind the lioness. From afar, the faint, intermittent cries of the lion cub pierced the quiet air, pushing them to move faster. After more than 1.5 kilometers of rough ground, they reached the mouth of a deep, dry pit. Peering down, David saw the tiny cub lying flat at the bottom, breathing heavily, barely clinging to consciousness. The mother lion stood guard at the edge, growling softly in helpless frustration, watching her cub fade. David wasted no time. He raced back to the vehicle to fetch any tools that could aid the rescue. From the supplies, he found a small bucket and a long, sturdy rope. With the help of a few willing tourists, they tied the rope tightly to the bucket handle, forming a simple yet desperate lifeline. Approaching the pit with care, David slowly lowered the bucket towards the cub. At first, the young lion recoiled, frightened and confused. But hearing the reassuring roars of its mother from above, the cub found courage. Patiently, David gestured and coaxed, offering silent encouragement with his body language and eyes. Minutes dragged on like hours. Finally, after nearly 10 agonizing minutes, the cub summoned its remaining strength and clambered into the bucket. Everyone held their breath, their hearts pounding as they watched this extraordinary moment unfold. David gave a quick signal, and the group began to hold the rope with steady, coordinated strength. The rope creaked against the dry, crumbling edges of the pit, but still they pulled, inch by inch. The mother lion paced anxiously, sniffing at the rim of the hole, as if willing her cub closer to safety. At last, with one final heave, the bucket broke free from the pit, and the cub was back on solid ground. Cheers of relief erupted among the tourists. David swiftly lifted the cub out of the bucket and laid it gently onto the grass. The mother lion rushed forward, pulling her cub into her strong forelimbs, licking him fiercely, her roars now rich with love and joy. The little cub lifted his weary head, rubbing affectionately against his mother's menere. Where moments before there had been despair, now there was pure happiness. The tourists, overwhelmed with emotion, applauded the heartwarming reunion. One of them quickly produced spare meat from a supply bag and offered it to David to feed the lions. Handling the situation with calm and skill, David approached cautiously and placed the meat before the mother and cub. Gratefully, they devoured the food, occasionally glancing up as if offering silent thanks. Joy radiated across everyone's faces as they witnessed the miracle of survival and trust. David and a few tourists stood at a safe distance, quietly watching the tender scene unfold. Replenished and full, the young cub soon regained its playful spirit, darting clumsily through the dry grass. The mother lion lovingly groomed her cub, removing the dust and dirt from his golden fur. Against the backdrop of a bright blue sky and endless yellow plains, the two lions stood together, a perfect image of resilience and love. For a brief, magical moment, they looked not like hunters or prey, but like travelers, ready to face the journey ahead. Several tourists moved closer, capturing precious photographs of the special moment, their faces lit up with pure smiles. The earlier fear and tension had vanished, replaced now by awe and gratitude. David watched the mother and her cub with affectionate eyes, a flood of memories rushing back from the day he had once saved her life. In his heart, he silently thanked nature for granting him the chance to meet her again, not as strangers, but as part of a story only the wild could write. The mother lion turned her golden gaze toward David one last time, letting out a soft, rumbling growl, a farewell filled with trust and gratitude. Beside her, the young cub mirrored her gesture, releasing a low, heartfelt growl of its own, as if offering thanks to the human who had pulled it back from the edge of despair. A warm, invisible thread seemed to weave between them, a silent bond forged by compassion and survival. The air was filled with a rare and beautiful peace, a moment when the worlds of human and wild touched gently, without fear. The tourists, moved by the extraordinary scene, waved joyfully, calling out, "Goodbye. See you again," their voices carrying lightly over the sun-drenched grasslands. Slowly, the mother lion and her cub melted into the vast, golden sea of grass, continuing their timeless journey of learning, hunting, and living. The rustling blades bent softly in the morning breeze, as if nature itself was offering its blessing to the brave pair. David packed up his gear and exhaled a deep, satisfied breath, his heart swelling with happiness. He had fulfilled his duty, not just as a protector of the wild, but as a friend to it. And so, on that quiet morning in the heart of the Maasai Mara, a new legend was written, a story of gratitude, love, and unbreakable solidarity between humans and the lions of the African plains. Watch until the end to witness the miraculous reunion. Like, share, and subscribe to celebrate the bond between humans and nature. Comment below, what would you have done in this situation? #LoveNature.